Proctor. I'm the head of programme at Be Music, which is the music charity that runs Town Hall and Symphony Hall, two concert hall venues in Birmingham. Yeah, so my day-to-day role involves managing the diary at two concert hall venues, and within that we have 4 performance spaces that we programme. So we are responsible, my team specifically, is responsible for about 750 performances a year. That can include anything from rock to pop, comedy, theatre, family shows, film premieres, screenings, that kind of thing. For me, I've always wanted to be in the industry. I'm a saxophone player by trade, so I learnt saxophone at the Conservatoire in Birmingham, and I wanted to come out and go on tour. I thought I was going to go on tour with Jamie Cullum, Amy Winehouse, those kind of things, and after 2 weeks I realised I wasn't quite good enough to do that. So I looked at the business side of the industry and explored more about what it was like to actually get the concerts to stage. And so I went to the Clarinet and Saxophone Society and helped organise their congress. I set up the internship at Cheltenham Jazz Festival, and I also took the Conservatoire's Jazz Orchestra on their first ever UK tour. So I gave myself as much of a breadth of experience, knowing that when I then took that first leap into Symphony Hall, I had a bit of experience that was relevant to where I was going. And my first role at Symphony Hall was as a front of house manager. So as you were coming to an event and if there was an issue on the night and you wanted to speak to someone, it would be myself. And the unique position with the front of house manager position at Symphony Hall and Town Hall is that they also then look after the artist backstage as well and liaise with the touring party. So you're dealing with customers front of house and you're dealing with clients back of house. And all I did was bide my time and move over to programming after a couple of years in front of house and work my way up from there. Okay, so the specific skills to the role is a heightened level of accuracy and a heightened level of detail. You would probably have to look at negotiation skills because you're constantly negotiating with different people on dates, on the types of deals that we do, on the types of artists that we present. There's also kind of a lot of collaboration internally with colleagues. So we in the programming team start every process, but then we also liaise with our finance team to make sure that we're doing everything properly. We liaise with box office so that they can then start setting up tickets. We liaise with marketing to make sure that they have the website ready and the images and the kind of descriptions of the shows. We then liaise with production and our operations teams to make sure that we can deliver them in the way that it is meant to be and is safely and securely. And then we also liaise with our catering team to make sure that the bars are open and that the artists have the necessary catering that they require. And then at the very end, it comes back to the programming team for us to sign off with our finance team. Within the programming team, we liaise with a lot of different clients. They can range from the likes of the BBC and Netflix to some of the world's biggest promoters. We also deal with agents. So agents are the people that are responsible for finding live opportunities for artists. We also liaise with managers who are the next level up. They are looking after the business of the artist, so that can be the record deal, could be the label, could be any endorsement sponsorships. And on a rare occasion, we can work directly with the artists themselves to book them into our spaces. So lots of different relationships on different bases. Everybody thinks that programming is rock and roll because you get to go to a lot of concerts. It's the nature of the business because you have to see what you've booked to see how it works, what didn't, what does the audience look like, how many tickets were sold. You do a lot of relationship management, but the performance itself is only 2 hours. It's the last 2 hours of what could be a 2, 3, 4 year process to get that performance to stage itself. From a Be Music perspective, Be Music is the music charity that operates two world-class music venues, but we're also a music charity that invests in talent development, both for emerging talent, for local talent across the Birmingham and West Midlands scene, and on a national, international basis. And also then we have our own talent development programs, whether it's jazz ensembles, a gospel ensemble, an Indian classical ensemble that come and rehearse regularly on site in the venues. We also have a responsibility within our communities, so a lot of the front of house spaces at Symphony Hall in particular, I have this ethos that I work with our programming team, which is called democratizing the space back to the city. And what that means is that if you're from a particular community and you have an idea that you want to try and make work in Symphony Hall, we will then try and work with you to enable that in some kind of way, whether it's us taking it on ourselves, whether it's working with you to apply for funding, or whether it's finding that kind of middle point on the deal to bring something to life in our spaces. For me, the biggest kick I get at my job is being stood at the back of a hall when a gig is taking place and you have thousands of people going absolutely bonkers for whoever's on stage, and you stand at the back and you go, I've enabled this to happen. I played a small part in this. There was a really good stat that came out during the pandemic, which was there was a campaign called Let the Music Play, and it was a grid and it was shaped like a pyramid, and there were 400 people that have an involvement in every single one artist that goes on stage. So every single gig, it could be a manager, an agent, a promoter. It could be a venue programmer, a finance assistant. It could be a cleaner. It could be someone as a front of house steward. But all of those 400 people play that role to get that one artist and that 2 hours or 3 hours of looking after an audience onto stage. The challenge in the role is not having enough dates. I don't have a 34th of October or a 31st of November, or I don't have another Symphony Hall because I could probably fill it over again. And sometimes I don't have the right size capacity of venues. So at Symphony Hall, we have a capacity of venues which are 50, 150 people, 250 people, 880 at Town Hall, 1,200 if we do standing at Town Hall, and then 1,900 at Symphony Hall. What I'm missing is that middle range of venue, which is about 450 to 500, which is where a lot of activity does take place. So if you're looking at the likes of Lichfield Garrick Theatre, for instance, that's in that window, and some of that programme I can't do because it doesn't make financial sense in our venues. So that's a real challenge. So as a saxophonist myself, I always like to try and keep my hands in. Sometimes it becomes useful because when you're playing at a festival and you're backstage, you get to have some one-on-one FaceTime with artists that either you've booked, you would like to book, you would like to work on an idea with. It also reminds me of the value of what artists get from it, both personally and financially. So we always try to make sure that we're fair with our fees, that the artist's welfare is at the centre of what we do, and that we make sure that the audience has a great experience, but also the artist itself. I tend to use my performances as a release from work. So yes, I'm in the music industry and music is my release. For me as a person, music's kind of really all I've ever known, from going to Cayley's when my granddad was playing in Irish centres around the UK, to playing in big bands growing up, to studying jazz, to being in the industry. So it's all I've really kind of known. But I love it, really. That's the kind of... We don't do it for the money, because the money is very volatile and isn't always brilliant. But you do it for a passion. And if you've got that passion, the passion for me was music, and I wanted to be in the industry in some way. And if we're honing in on a specific moment, for me, I was watching Chic with Nile Rodgers at Sheffield Arena in about 2000, 2001. And it was the first time I'd ever seen a horn section from a band playing, and it was a saxophone, a trumpet and a trombone player on a podium. My dad had taken me to the gig, and I turned to him and said, I kind of want to do this. This is what I want to do. I want to be involved in this industry somehow. And at the end of the gig, he took me down to the front, just down to the barriers, on the off chance that we would get to say hi to someone. And the bass player, Jerry, at the time came over, shook my hand, and my dad said, have you got any advice for Chris? Because he wants to get into the industry. And he just turned around and said, just keep going. Fast forward 15 years, and Chic are playing down at Mostly Jazz Funk and Soul Festival in Birmingham. I'm backstage having a chat with the band. Jerry's still in the band. And I went over to him and said, you don't realise, but about 15 years ago, you told me to just keep going. I just kept going, and here we are again now. So thank you. The pattern of change, because of the growth of streaming industries, because of the growth of Spotify, the kind of Netflixes, all that kind of thing, the offer for an audience is so much better at home, or the breadth of the offer is so much better, that the desire to then come out isn't necessarily as there as it was when I was growing up. For me, it was either television, theatre, gig, or stay at home and read a book, that kind of thing. So there's much more competition for people's attention. There's much more competition for people's time. And with the growth of the likes of AI and generative AI, what it means is that around 28 to 30% of the music that is currently sitting on Spotify is not created by a human, it is AI generated, which means that the algorithms are becoming more homogeneous, which means that they're all starting to sound the same. If you have a hit, a record label will want another hit because they just want to keep that monetary cycle going. What it then means is that the algorithms then all start to sound the same, and we all start to, if we're not careful, we start to move towards this generic sounding music. So if you're creating music, try and find that originality within it, because actually that originality is what people like myself are looking for when we're trying to create that live experience. We are custodians of two world-class venues. Our responsibility is to bring people together for a shared experience. So therefore, the value of that shared experience is something that you cannot put a monetary value on. It's very much more of a personal level. I think there will always need to be a human element in venue programming, whether it's coming up with a new idea, whether it's having that personal relationship with somebody who's about to perform. Yes, there are developments. So the diary system we use is now on a cloud-based server, so I can work anywhere in the world and I can still have access to our venue diary. The same with our box office system. As we're becoming more connected as a global community, it's easier to share ideas. So we can jump on a Zoom call and I can be meeting with venues from Brussels and Greece and Holland and Germany, all within an hour. And at the end of that hour, we could have come up with 3 or 4 potential tours for artists or ideas. The same with the UK venue networks that we're a part of as well. What the technology advancements means is that we can be slightly more efficient. So we can do electronic contracts now, whereas we couldn't before. I can view the diary anywhere, whereas before I would have to go to the office. So those are probably going to be more important. AI will probably have more of a role within how we manage the diary, so it can probably find more available dates for me instead of having to go through manually and write them down and then send them as an email. It might start to generate it in that way. But there still, I would argue, always needs to be that human element, because as a venue programmer, you're curating people's experiences in our venue, and you need to make sure that there's a balance, that we've got classical, that we have rock, pop, comedy, and that they're done a decent way apart from each other in the diary. So I shouldn't put a full week of comedy together because I might not get all my audiences. Now, any form of automation might just naturally do that because a date is available, whereas you have that human access and kind of go, yeah, we can't have too much comedy or can't have too much rock in this particular window. We need to space them out. Personally, I've been involved in a lot of programming around the Commonwealth Games in 2022. So the choir that you saw during the opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies, 750 singers, I curated that choir with a couple of local partners as part of our project. In June 2022, we worked with the BBC Symphony Orchestra and we collaborated with Birmingham rappers, gospel artists, spoken word artists and poets, and produced a concert that was called Beyond the Bricks of Brum. That was then ended up going out on radio, on BBC WM, on Radio 1 Extra. It went out on BBC 4 on TV and then sat on iPlayer for a year. And we ended up with about 55,000 unique views, which for that kind of concert on iPlayer was quite a success. We also then programmed 16 gigs over 10 days on the Victoria Square stage in the middle of Birmingham. So if you were coming through Birmingham during the Commonwealth Games, it was highly likely that you would have seen some of the artists that we've programmed into there. So that particular window for me is something that I'm really proud of. The best experience I've probably had from a live music point of view in our venues would be David Byrne on the American Utopia tour in 2016, which was a phenomenal performance, which had huge chainmail kind of box suspended from the ceiling of Symphony Hall. All of the performers were all wireless, so they weren't behind drum kits, they weren't kind of tethered to amps. Everybody was able to move around freely. And I know that David Byrne has recently just gone back out on another tour, and that same concept is starting to be done. So I'm hopefully going to try and get down to one of those performances, because it really was a memorable experience. If you're wanting to take that first step, just do it. Don't wait for somebody to give you the opportunity. If you spot an opportunity, or you want to move into an area, create the opportunity, because I can guarantee that if you do that, you will draw like-minded individuals to you, your network will grow, and very, very quickly you will realise that just one seed of an idea can suddenly bloom quite quickly. There's an old saying that may not be as valuable these days, but when I started, it was kind of expect to do a lot for not a lot. And what that means is that, you know, the internship I did wasn't paid, but I got my travel covered. And whenever Cheltenham Jazz Festival happened, I then was put up in a hotel for a week, either side of the festival. But what that meant was I had access to artists. I got to absorb the skill set of how to run a concert, how to look at the contracts, how to deal with the marketing, how to stuff in envelopes. All of that experience is still valid, and some of those lessons that I learned from those formative years I still trade on today. So never underestimate the value of a piece of experience that you have. It could be a 5-minute conversation, it could be a 2-hour gig, it could be you getting screwed over by a promoter or a venue. Always bank it. It will always come in useful going forward. If you want to find out more about what we do at Be Music, head to bemusic.co.uk and you'll find out all the opportunities that we have, whether it's our ensembles we run, the programme that we present, the great cafe we have with a Brummie bacon cake. You need to go and visit and find out more about that. And if you're ever in the building and you see me or my colleagues walking around, we usually have our lanyards on. Come and say hi, come and ask us a question. We'll always answer where we can. Thank you.